Five Nights at Freddy's, let's talk about one of its stars. Well, I should say someone who basically makes a bona fide cameo, Skeet Ulrich. So yeah, he was on the red carpet for Five Nights at Freddy's 2. And he had a conversation with Entertainment Weekly where he was shedding light on the original plans for his Scream character, serial killer Billy Loomis, before they had the whole creative shift regarding Melissa Barrera, where she was speaking out for, Palestine. She was very pro-Palestine, was condemning the genocide and all that other stuff. And Spyglass decided, okay, we don't like all that stuff. We're pretty much Zionists. We're gonna fire you for having an opinion. Which is always funny when incels always talk about they don't want people having an opinion. Celebrities need to just act or whatever the case is. When last time I checked, there are people out here who are also political activists. They're not just, shells of whatever, speaking for whatever. But when you get people on your side that speak things that you agree with, the energy is not there and it don't match. So Melissa Barrera ended up losing her job. And people were wondering because they're bringing a lot of the previous killers. That's the rumor, maybe AI, whatever the case is. But they're wondering if Skeet Ulrich is going to make an appearance in Scream 7. Who knows if that'll happen? So far, we only know about some of the other ones, Roman Bridgers. We know about Stu, but we only know that there might be voices, AI, whatever the case. We don't know in what capacity. So Skeet Ulrich is not speaking on whether or not he's going to be in it. It wouldn't, to be honest, the way that they worked his arc in the previous films, it wouldn't make sense for him to come back. They pretty much turned him into a Star Wars as Force Ghost. So it wouldn't make sense to be like, oh, well, all of a sudden Billy Loomis is alive. So when asked if it's a spoiler to question him on whether he would return as Billy Loomis for Scream 7, which comes out on February 27th, he says, I've been vocal about that. I'm not. When we talk about coming back for 5, it was a 3-picture arc for Billy Loomis to slowly turn his daughter into the killer. Obviously, those things didn't pan out given certain things that happened, but no, I know nothing about the 7th. Now, Ulrich's Billy Loomis died, as y'all know, in the original Scream in 1996 as one half of the Ghostface killers with Matthew Lillard's Stu Macher. However, when Radio Silence filmmaking duo Tyler Gillett and Matt Bettinelli took the directing reins for the fifth Scream and Scream 6, which came out in 2022 and 2023, respectively. That's probably why that third act doesn't work, because y'all rushed out that damn Scream 6 movie. Billy returned in ghost form to guide his daughter, Barrera's Sam Carpenter, the de facto lead of the 2 movies. The certain thing that happened Ulrich is referring to are things Scream fans already know full well. Gillette and Bettinelli departed Scream 7 due to scheduling with another project, which was Abigail. Barrera was fired from the production over social media posts related to the Israel-Gaza conflict, and then the exits of co-star Jenna Ortega and new Scream 7 director Christopher Landon were announced shortly after. The direction of the 7th installment took a new path, as you know, where Christopher Landon left because he was getting death threats for staying on this film. And it also makes me wonder that if Sam was to become the killer, does that mean that Jenna Ortega would have been the final girl, and then if she would have had to move herself in a position of, I have to kill my sister to stop her from becoming the dark, like for the dark passenger? Yes, as a Dexter reference, taking over. So I'm wondering if that's what that would have transpired into. That would have been a fascinating direction, in my opinion, that they could have taken the franchise in. I would have really liked to have seen that pan out, but unfortunately, not unfortunate because I love Nev Campbell, but unfortunately, we're not going to get to see that in that world being explored. But I do like the idea that we got Sydney coming back. Sydney's family is being stalked. There's different and higher stakes. Hopefully it pays off, and I'm looking forward to seeing whatever that movie is. But once they, chop that, I don't know. I was on the fence. I'm like, what are we going to do about this franchise? But now that we got Kevin Williamson, who created the Scream franchise, so not Nev, Gail, uh, Sydney, those characters he created, and his DNA is definitely going to be over this script, because when you had them script writers from the previous Scream movies, the last 2, I don't feel like y'all really truly captured Kevin Williamson's scream isms in the script. So we know that from what I've heard, and I think it's pretty much out there that Kevin Williamson definitely sprayed his skunk DNA all over this script. So they said there's gonna be a lot of callbacks. I forgot which actor that was in the film. Oh, it was the girl that plays Tatum, Isabel May. I think she was doing an interview for, oh my god, what is that? She one of those Yellowstone spinoff shows that she's on. I don't remember because I don't watch the show that she's on. Is she on Landman? She's on one of them damn shows. But anyway, so she would sit down for an interview and she was basically like, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of callbacks to the original films and all this stuff. So I feel like that now, because the radio silence was pretty much thumbing their nose at my generation and was trying to pass it off to like Gen Zers or whatever, that would they could pass this franchise down to the next generation and be like, screw the people that been watching this franchise for almost 30 years. I feel like now they're trying to call it back to those of us who've been following this franchise since the beginning, which would be smart. And if there's any of the new generation that are interested in Scream and be like, you know what, I kind of like this franchise. Let me go back and watch all the other ones. Then that's awesome. But don't turn your nose up at the people who've been riding with this franchise since the beginning. But I do agree, at some point, we're going to have to revamp this franchise where Sydney's got to get a break, and it can't always just be about these killers going after her. Because the storyline is gonna get a bit stale after a while. It's like, come on now, 7 movies and we still going after Sydney. So they basically said that the film is now about Sydney's family, including her daughter Tatum, as we know, and her cop husband Mark, played by Joe McHale, being terrorized by a new Ghostface. So Ulrich has also said in the past he didn't read any scripts, but his comments may still come as a surprise, even though Sam becoming the killer remains a popular fan theory, of what could have been. Little is so definitely stated on the record. Barrera told Flickering Myth in 2023, it would be my dream for Sam to be Ghostface. That same year, she told Digital Spy, she's the hero, but she's also kind of the villain in this, so she's an anti hero. It's this contradiction on her that I find fascinating. And the directors themselves often hinted at the darkness within Sam when alluding to where they might have taken the franchise next, saying Sydney inherits the thing from her mom, right or wrong. She is paying the price for something that happened in the past, and that for us is just always really an interesting idea. Because it's like, yeah, when you look at Sydney, her mother was, flaunting her stuff around town like she was Sharon Stone or something. And let's be clear, she is no Sharon Stone. You know the line from Scream. Um, and Sydney had to pay for a lot of her mother's reputation of living a double life. Then you have Sam. I like the idea that they explored the other side, even though I don't feel like they were really giving that in the scripts. It's better when you're explaining it versus us actually seeing it on the screen. So I like the idea that with Sam, it's like, yeah, we want to explore that other side. Is like, your father was a serial killer in Woodsboro, half of one, might have had a sexual relations with Stu. So Skeet character Billy was around here being a whore. He was doing Sydney, he was doing Christina Carpenter, he might have been doing Stu Mocker. And they tease that they might have been a little couple or whatever the case is when they do the cons and all the other stuff. So that would have been cool because it kind of gives like a Rope vibe. And if you haven't seen Rope, it's an Alfred Hitchcock movie, and you would know what I'm referring to when it comes to that whole, serial killer gay couple situation. So they said when a character living in a moment is having to kind of reconcile themselves with something that happened in their past or with somebody that they have an attachment to in their past. And for us, certainly Sam is a proxy for that idea in so many ways. And her connection to Billy, all that for us is just such an interesting world to explore. So that would have been a cool thing to explore. But yeah, we're getting this new franchise. Hopefully it doesn't suck. And I'm looking forward to seeing the new Scream when it comes out in February. So yeah, I say all this to say, what do you guys think of this story? Would you have liked to have seen a world explored where Sam Carpenter would have became the new Ghostface? And I'm guessing because, yeah, when you really look at it, Jenna Ortega is the biggest star in so many ways. People tend to be more familiar and more interested in wanting to see Jenna Ortega than Melissa Barrera. So it would have been interesting that they're kind of switched up the roles, and Jenna's character, Tara, she was kind of like finding herself and getting, coming into her own. And seeing that, it would be an exploit in her having to come to this decision of, damn, now I gotta take out my sister because she done snapped. That would have been an interesting world to explore. But I'm definitely curious to see what Kevin Williams is going to be doing with this franchise, and if he's able to redeem himself from that film, Killing Mrs. Tingle. They call it Teaching Mrs. Tingle, but the original title is what I'm calling it, Killing Mrs. Tingle, because that was the title. So let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.